Hello, everyone, and welcome back to PowerTalk. I'm Tom Power, your host, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, a true trailblazer in municipal politics and community leadership. Sheilagh O'Leary is known for her unwavering commitment to social justice, sustainability, and inclusive leadership. We're going to learn more about her journey, her achievements, and the causes she cares about. Sheilagh, thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, Tom, thanks so much for the invitation. It's honestly a real privilege to be here. Thank you.
Let's get started. Let's start at the beginning. You were born and raised in St. John's, and your passion for activism began at, and community service began at an early age. Can you tell us about your upbringing and what initially sparked your interest in community involvement?
Yep. Oh my gosh, it's funny, I was just thinking about that because I went for an early morning walk around our beautiful urban park, Long Pond in Pippi Park. And, these are the things that you ruminate about is, where you've been, where you're going. And of course, the start of a new year, 2025, of course, there's lots of reflections on where you've been, what you've done, where you're going. And knowing that, of course, you have very little control over all of the above. But I was thinking about that because I grew up and I had great fortune to have a wonderful family life. I grew up in Churchill Square area. And I had two very hardworking parents. One was a nurse, and one was in sales. My dad, and but they were very, very community involved. They were active volunteers, both in sports, recreation, in community in general, and they gave of themselves freely outside of their own work time. So they were major role models for me, certainly. We had there were five children in the family. We were all athletes, and so we had a very diverse kind of upbringing in lots of ways. Because even though I was raised as an athlete and healthy living and recreation was top of mind, I ended up becoming an artist in my mature life. So it's wonderful how all of those things kind of combine to and the influences that you have. But my parents certainly were my major role models. And their history itself is interesting because my dad, of course, with a name like Sheilagh O'Leary, of course, I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, and my dad was very, very active in promoting that. Um, but the quieter story was the one about my mom, and she was a courmier. From the west coast of the island. So she was culturally French Mi'kmaq, but in that day and age, of course, people did not kind of wave that flag in the same kind of way because there was so much discrimination and shame. Really happy to see us coming into a new era where indigeneity and vulnerabilities like that are being addressed. So I had a really interesting kind of combination, both culturally, but I was very privileged to grow up in a good neighborhood with really hardworking parents who, worked hard to provide for family and also really active in community.
Before delving into politics, you had a thriving career as a documentary photographer. How did that artistic background shape your perspective on public as a public figure?
Well, it's so interesting because when I first decided to run for council, I mean, let's be clear. I never anticipated getting involved in politics. It was never an aspiration of mine. Um, as I mentioned, I grew up in a very community-oriented kind of family. We were very proactive in recreation and such. And when I went to school, I actually thought I was going to do marine biology. I was really interested in sciences. Um, and I was also really interested in, the human experience for sure. But as life, progressed, I became very, very involved in social activism, and I think that was based upon my parents, the template that they provided, and certainly my concern about the world, and in particular social justice issues. And that was really internal. That was always a part of me ever since I was a little girl. I can remember always asking those tough questions that oftentimes people wouldn't want to talk about, whether or not it was stuff about cultures or race or things like that. And so I was always curious. And I think curiosity is really, truly the driving force of everything that I do in my life. And I'm doing a whole bunch of different things. So I pursued with curiosity, I continued to move and flow. And then I found the arts. I did a photography course with renowned pinhole photographer Manny Buckite through Mun Extension Arts, which was an arts program that fostered a lot of incredible talent in the community. It was a creative hub that was adjoined to the university. And people like Rick Mercer and Andrew Younghusband and Cogco and, all of the great visual artists that we historically have seen here. Many of them were teachers there. It was a real creative hub. So I had the great fortune of doing a photography course. And as soon as I did the course, having no arts background other than through school system, I realized, oh my gosh, this is it. I needed a mode of self-expression. So I pursued that both through schooling, experientially, and so it developed into a career of almost 40 years now of practicing analog photography, with the human experience being the main focus. So how does that intersect with politics, you might ask, right? It's because it's not something that most people would aspire to as an artist. Um, I I really felt it was important to have that kind of voice about culture at the table when we're making decisions for our city. And of course, also, parallel to my fascination and interest in culture, arts and culture, is the fact that I was always heavily involved in social justice movement. And so that really, those two veins, I think, parallel really were the driving force that got me to the political stage. Um, but my social justice movement really developed in my late teens and early 20s with something you may know as the Peace Festival, Peace Accord.
Hmm.
So that was kind of
Yeah.
the starting point for me.
During your time on council, you championed many initiatives: breastfeeding advocacy, environmental stewardship, and programs supporting women in leadership roles. Which of these accomplishments stands out to you most, and why?
Hmm. I'm a very, very proactive person. Anybody who knows me knows that I have a strong voice, and I really, it's not just about elevating things that I see in the community that I need, that require change or improvement, but seeing other, being a vessel for other people to do so. I mean, that's what elected officials are meant to do. They're meant to represent people and the concerns in the community and how we can continue to build, a healthier, safer community that fosters a good life for everybody. Um, we know that certainly, people of different socioeconomic, situations, have different lives, and so we always need to keep an eye on those that have less privilege, honestly. And so that has always been a priority for me. Um, and so in that effort, I guess one of the strongest urges or the desires that I have is about mentorship, truly. There's a number of different things that I'd like to implement in my role as a city councillor, now deputy mayor. But and there's always something. There's always an agenda. I always have a number of lists of things that I want to tackle, right? There's always something right
Yeah.
after. You might get a win, you may not win that one, but there's always a list of trying to progress things. And so there will always be a long list. But if we are not training people and not mentoring people to have a voice, not to just lay back and let things happen, let good or bad political leaders take us down a road. We need to be proactive in our lives, and I'm a firm believer in democracy and everybody having a voice. That doesn't mean that you're going to satisfy everybody's needs, but it is really important that we encourage people to be mentors, to pass the baton, because the truth of it is, Tom, we're only going to be here for a minute. So what happens after us? What's our generation afterwards going
Exactly.
to going to be dealing with? What kind of? I want to leave the planet in a better way, make it a better place for the next generation and the generations to come. And so I think that really it tied into that is mentorship. And there's a lot of formal mentorship kind of opportunities that happen, bringing younger people, cultural diversity into the mix. But I think, some of that is through action. And some of that is just by one-on-one having influence with people in community to let them know that they have the power. So
Absolutely.
I think that if I had to boil it down to one particular thing, I think mentorship is extremely crucial for us as a society that is seeing a lot of chaos right now in politics. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of anxiety people are feeling, and a lot of inequity.
Mhm.
So, we're seeing political changes at the American level. That's going to influence us at the federal level, the provincial level, and even as a municipal leader, which, is the bottom of the tier. And, I have nothing but respect for the municipal leaders right across our province and country because they're oftentimes working with very, very few tools to try to do some of the most proactive changing in community and work. So it is very challenging. But I think I think that there's opportunities there for many people, and so we need to keep on training, keep on encouraging people to have a voice.
Absolutely. Um, Politics can be challenging. Can you share a significant obstacle you faced and how you overcame it?
Oh, there's a few really. As a feminist and somebody who certainly has been mentoring a lot of women to get involved, because again, gender equity for me has been a big mission. I've been involved with Equal Voice NL as a co-chair previously, and now, of course, that baton has been passed many times, and there's new younger leaders who are taking up the task in a day and age where we're seeing a lot of women starting to pull back from political positions when we were just starting to make some advancements. So that's a huge concern. Um, uh, I guess the question, uh, sorry, Tom, I got lost in that one.
Oh, no
Could
worries.
you ask one more time?
It's uh, I said politics can be challenging. Can you share a significant obstacle you faced and
Yeah.
how you overcame it?
I would say if I had to pick one, and there are several, I think it would be about the gender equity issue in
Mhm.
leadership.
Mhm.
Because it does play out. I also believe in cultural diversity as well too. I think that we need to have other forms of leaders and people at the table as well. But even just beginning with gender equity is a task in itself. The fact that there are 52% of the population are women, and we are so poorly represented in the democratic process, that's a huge challenge. And it's a challenge in society, but it's also a challenge on the inside, of our chamber when we're making decisions. We had the great fortune of achieving gender equity in 2017 on St. John City Council, which was wonderful. And we saw those voices really highlight inclusivity and a number of issues that never would have gotten on the table if it was, an all male council. And that's not to disregard my male colleagues because they're doing great work. I can respect and acknowledge all the work that everybody does, but we need to ensure that we have that kind of diversification in many ways. Certainly, gender diversity as well. And I think that has been one of the biggest challenges. But there are many others, systems being, government systems, working within a system. As an activist, working outside of a system, you can say all kinds of things. But once you get in the system, you realize that there are a number of challenges and things that can't happen immediately. And so then you have to do a number of negotiations, figuring out how to pick your battles, which is the issue that you're really going to go for, and how to do that all with respect, um, while you're trying to represent the people that you're
Absolutely.
that you're elected to serve.
Mhm. You've been involved in numerous causes, and your passion is clearly unwavering. Where do you draw your inspiration from, and what's next for you in your political or community journey?
I what well, as I mentioned before, curiosity. I am a naturally curious person. I'm always interested. I'm always asking questions. I think that's a little bit of a result of being raised, by the nuns, if I might say. The sisters always taught us to ask questions and be curious and inquisitive, and that was certainly one of the real highlights and benefits that I feel like I received out of my education. I think that curiosity about the world helps you kind of, you know, be it's multiplicity. It enables you to have perspective on a number of different things. Yes, I'm an artist. Yes, I'm a feminist, and now I'm a politician. And but I'm an environmentalist, and really, ultimately, we are, I want to bring it down and make us all realize the humility that we need to have in our bodies. We are so minuscule in the scheme of things. Sometimes we can get so caught up in all of the problems of the world, but we need to realize our place in the universe. So it's all about having a bit of perspective as well too. So I am a very, very big proponent of the environment, supporting the environment that cradles us, that supports us, that we live upon. Um, I'm a big tree hugger. And truly, I would say that my step off when I finally decided to run for council, not knowing what I was getting involved in that was probably in 2009, I thought, wow, this would be a great project, like all the other art projects I got involved in, and all full of vim and vigor. And then you get elected and you realize, oh, it's a different kind of system. But you can still be effective. You can still have a voice. You can still work. You can still lead and be a team player. And but the environment is certainly one of the number one issues for me in terms of sustainability, and it was the driving force for me in getting involved. And so many of the issues that I've dealt with, especially in my early years, and now again as sustainability lead on council, is about conservation, protecting the environment, making sure that we are doing a really responsible, balanced job of maintaining development and environment in a growing city. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, now we're going to have a little bit of fun
Oh, okay.
with a quick rapid fire round. Answer
Okay.
the first thing that comes to your mind. Favorite Newfoundland landmark.
Ooh, Signal Hill is my go-to in St. John's. Every time I go there, it just seems like a different place. I just love it.
A hidden gem in St. John's that people should visit.
Ooh, I think Pippi Park. There's a number of beautiful trails there that I think a lot of people would really appreciate if they haven't been before, certainly.
One word that best describes you.
Bold, um, positive, I hope. You asked for one. I gave you two.
And the most inspiring figure in your life.
My mother. I have great respect. It's funny, I just think about I am a spiritual person, and that manifests in not a traditional kind of religious kind of way, but I'm deeply spiritual, and I really believe um, that mothers are where it all begins. Mothers and fathers too, but I have such great respect for the work that and nurturing that my mother gave to me that allowed me to have a life and continue on from there. So, and for me, being a mother myself, I think it's been one of really the biggest gift that I've had in my life is to be a mom. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, if you could share one piece of advice with our viewers who want to make a difference in their own communities, what would it be?
Get outside, be in nature, get outdoors. We live in a very, very stressful time right now, and I've referenced that earlier. There's a lot of anxiety, especially with our young people, but certainly all ages. There's a lot of political unrest. There's uncertainty in the world, and that causes a lot of anxiety. And social media plays into that. But I really, really, truly believe in the benefits of being in nature and try to maintain both mental and physical health by being attached to nature. I know that I feel like a completely different person when I go out, and even if it's not a walk, even if I just go out and sit and look at the sun or look at the sky and nature, my mind and my spirit is much more at peace. So that would be my one piece of advice for sure for anybody because it certainly works for me.
Sheila, thank you so much for joining us on Power Talk and sharing
I
your journey, insights, and passion. I know our viewers will be inspired by your story and motivated to bring out positive change in their own communities.
Thomas, I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you. We have great privilege. We live in a beautiful place, and it truly is an honor to share a little bit of my experience here of how I'm trying to help move that needle forward as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Power Talk. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the more inspiring conversations. Remember, it only takes one spark to light up a community. And be that spark. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.